Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2 Unit 3.1 3.3 review, video number 2. First one was taking so long that I wanted to kind of cut it in half. Not for you, but more for me because I was getting tired of doing all this work. Alright, so if you need help with that first side, make sure to watch video number 1. Alright, video number 2. So on this side, we have to solve and graph each absolute value inequality. Okay, write the solution in interval notation. Okay, so on the other side, we were dealing with just equations, but now we have the inequality. And remember what we talked about? That if we used less than or equal to, that we would change that to an and, because we said it was less than. And then if it was greater than or equal to, we would change that to an or because it was greater. Yes, we're nerds. We get it. All right. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that the absolute value is all by itself. And it is. Okay. So looking at that symbol, it is less than, which tells me that this is going to be an and. All right, so we write the inequality or the absolute value in the middle, 9 minus 6p. I'm going to use whatever the inequality is, and I'm going to write it 2 times. One, it's going to be set to positive 21, and the other one will be negative 21. And from here on out, all we do is solve. Okay, as we zoom in here, let's get up all nice and close in this problem's business. To solve, we just do SADMAP, so I subtract 9. Negative 21 minus 9 is a negative 30, is less than negative 6p, which is less than 12. The p is not by itself. I have to divide by negative 6. And when I divide by negative 6, I have to flip the inequality. Negative 30 divided by negative 6 is a positive 5. 12 divided by negative 6 is negative 2. Now, the only problem with that is they are not written correctly. So we have to rewrite negative 2p and 5. Between the p and the negative 2, the inequality is pointing at negative 2. And between the 5 and the p, the inequality is pointing at the p. So that's going to help me graph. Now, we talked about how if the p is in the middle, I'm going to be shading the middle. So let's go through and do it. At negative 2, we're open. At 5, we are, oh, we're not closed, Mr. Grice. We're open. Just making sure you guys are paying attention. Okay? And then I'm going to shade the middle, because anything in the middle could be my answer. And now writing that in interval notation, we start at negative 2 and it's open, so it's parentheses, and we end at 5 and it's open, so we use parentheses. Next one. Number 12. The inequality is by itself greater or equal to. So this is a or. When we have an or, we write it down twice. Negative 10 minus 2x, negative 10 minus 2x. One, it is the same, the greater than or equal to 6, and the other one we have to flip it and we set it equal to negative 6. So there's my or. And then we have to go through and solve each one. All right, I add 10 to both sides. We have negative 2x is less than or equal to a positive 4. And then to get the x by itself, I have to divide by negative 2. When I divide by a negative, I have to flip the inequality symbol. And then we get 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. Now, the nice thing about this is since we're doing the same problem, we talked about this in the other video, that I'm doing the same exact steps. So if I'm doing the same exact steps, it makes it a lot easier. I just have to watch out because it's going to be a different answer. Okay, but look, I divided by negative, I had to flip my sign, and then we get x is less than or equal to negative 8. All right, so as I write my final answer, remember that they have to be written in order from least to greatest. And now I can go through and do my shading. At negative 8, we're closed, and I'm shading to the left. At negative 2, we are closed, and I'm shading to the right. So where does my graph begin? Well, it begins at negative infinity, and it goes to negative 8 where it's closed. This is our break, and then the graph picks up again at 2 and goes to positive infinity. And that's how I write that in interval notation. Okay, so negative infinity to negative 8, 2 to positive infinity. Sorry, negative 2. And it's funny, I wrote positive 2 for both of those. Okay. So now we start to see that the inequality is not by itself. Okay, so I'm multiplying by 5. I have to do the inverse, so I have to divide by 5. We get the absolute value of 10n plus 8 is greater than 110 divided by 5. Yeah, that's 22. Okay, the absolute value is by itself, and it's greater. So that means we're going to have an or. 10n plus 8 is less than negative 22. 10n plus 8 is greater than 22. Remember, with these inequalities, since it's or, they have to be going in opposite directions. So that's why we change one to less than and the other one to positive. Okay. So my first step is to subtract 8 to both sides. We get 10n is less than negative 30. Divide both sides by 10. And we get n is less than negative 3. On the right, we're doing the same thing. All right, just be careful, because 22 minus 8, you don't get 30. Whew, excuse me. All right, yeah, 10n is greater than 14. Divide by 10. 14 over 10, we have to reduce that, and I want the fraction. Yep, it's 7 over 5. Now, some of you might have written down that, hey, this is 1.4. We're going to need that when we graph. All right, but my final, putting these together, is n is less than negative 3, or n is greater than 7 over 5. Okay, and that's what we need to graph. So at negative 3, we are open, and we shade to the left. 7 over 5, which is about 1.4, which is just a little bit less than half, and we are greater. Okay, I like to write down where that is since it wasn't on the graph. Okay, and then we start at negative infinity to negative 3. There's my union, 7 over 5 to positive infinity. Okay. Is the absolute value by itself? Nope. We have a fraction, so we have to multiply by the reciprocal. And 10 over 1 is the same thing as 10. Okay. So we have 6 plus 6y is less than or equal to 30. Our absolute value is by itself. And now I know that this is going to be and because it's less than. So I take the absolute value. I'm writing down the same sign, and then I set it to negative 30 and positive 30. Why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and see if you can solve and graph on your own. Good luck. Okay, so there's my work. I had to subtract 6 to both sides and then divide by 6. So we get negative 6 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 4. My y was in the middle, so I had to shade in the middle. And then writing that in interval notation, I am closed at negative 6, and then I am closed at 4. All right, number 15. Let's see you solve and set up. Tell me if it's and or, and then we can kind of solve the rest on your own. Okay? So pause the video and good luck. Don't just wait for the answer. Pause it. Okay, so we had to subtract 8 to both sides, then divide by 9. We got 4p minus 4 is greater than 12, which tells me it's an OR graph. And then now we're going to solve. Okay, make sure you had a less than negative 12 and a greater than 12. Okay, if you wanted to add 4 to everything, 4p equals is less than negative 8. 4p is greater than 16. Divide everything by 4. We get p is less than negative 2 and p is greater than 4. Okay, this is already in order. And then that's what we need to graph. At negative 2, we're open. I'm shading to the left. And at 4, I'm open, shading to the right. Okay? You should be able to look at that and know that it's negative infinity to negative 2, union 4 to positive infinity. Okay? We should be good with that stuff by now. Okay, last one. So we'll do the same sort of thing. Get the absolute value by itself and set it up, and then we'll solve it together. Pause the video, and good luck. Okay, so we had to subtract 2 and then divide by 8. The absolute value of negative 6b plus 1 is less than or equal to 7. So it is an and inequality. Let's go through and solve. You had to subtract 1. Remember to do it to all three sides. We get negative 8 is less than or equal to negative 6b, which is less than or equal to 6. To get the absolute value, or the n blah, 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 it's late. The variable by itself, we had to divide by a negative. So as I'm dividing by a negative, I am flipping my sign. 6 divided by negative 6 is negative 1. Negative 8 divided by negative 6 is a positive 4/3. Okay? And then remember, if we divide by a negative, we're going to have to end up rewriting this. It's pointing at the negative 1 and then pointing at the b. Up. There we go. Now, 4/3, what does that equal? What do you tell me? Oh, fine. I can't hear you. 4 divided by 3, 1.3. Okay, so at negative 1, we are closed. 1.3, we are closed. It's very close to the 1, just not quite. And I'm going to write 4/3 so we know where it's at. Okay? Negative 1 to 4/3. And there we're using brackets. All right, guys, well, that's it for the 3.1, 3.3 review. Man, am I glad we did 2 videos. Otherwise, that would have been like 35 minutes. So if you need extra help, please come see Ms. Carranza or myself. You know we would love to help you out. Otherwise, this is Mr. Grice signing off for Algebra 2, Unit 3.1, 3.3 review. Thanks for watching.